What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you right here on ESPN Radio, as I love to do every weekday. 250-plus markets across the United States of America. Just last week, we included Houston, Texas, and San Antonio, Texas into the mix. Welcome aboard. Plus, we're on ESPN Radio, Sirius XM style, Channel 80. This show is being brought to you by Weston. Remember, Weston knows how disruptive travel can be to your well-being. But with rejuvenating heavenly beds and nutritious superfoods RX menu and gear lending for when you leave your workout gear at home, Weston will help you stay in control and rise above it all. Weston, let's rise. Learn more at Weston.com. We got a lot of stuff to get into today, okay? We got the news from Adam Schefter about how Brady hasn't committed to the 2018 NFL season. What's going on in New England? What's the problem there? We got that stuff to get into. We got to get into what transpired last night in Portland, Oregon with Drew Holiday. Not Damian Lillard, not CJ McCollum, but Drew Holiday and Rajon Rondo, the backcourt of New Orleans, winning the first two games in Portland. And is on the brink of pushing Portland to the brink of elimination, courtesy of a sweep. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on with these NBA playoffs. Of course, Boston. There's a new star in town. It was supposed to be Gordon Hayward, but he went out first game of the season. It was supposed to be Kyrie Irving, but he got hurt and he's out for the playoffs. This brother named Jaylen Brown is just putting on a show. Greek Freak ain't bad. He's balling. Middleton is not bad. He's balling. But they have no help in Milwaukee whatsoever. We'll be talking about that as the show progresses. And, of course, the great Mel Kiper Jr., a week away from the NFL draft, seems like folks are gravitating towards the mock drafts that he put out there. And it's going to be real interesting to see how things unfold. Evidently, the Jets might end up getting themselves a star quarterback. I'll explain what I'm talking about in just a couple of minutes. Because remember, Mel Kiper Jr. is coming on hour number 2 to talk to us about this stuff. And I can't wait to drop some knowledge with y'all about what's transpiring. Can't wait to share that with y'all as well. So that's something to stick around. Of course, the New York Giants might end up getting Saquon Barkley. I'll tell you why that is as well. Bradley Chubb, who's going to be a top 5 pick in this NFL draft, his ability to get at the passer. Remember, Von Miller came out and said he's a cross between himself and Khalil Mack. So he'll be on with us about 30 minutes past this hour. Can't wait to holler at him as well. But it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. I got New York on my mind right now. I got New York on my mind just for this moment because as we speak, Mark Jackson, former head coach for the Golden State Warriors, basketball analyst and commentator extraordinaire for the ESPN ABC family, is sitting down with the New York Knicks interviewing for their head coaching job. I don't know if it's this second, but I know today is the day he's talking to them. And I can tell you this right now, and I'm unapologetic about this. I don't understand for the life of me how people seem to have a struggle comprehending what the hell I'm talking about. I really, really don't understand it. Just in case I didn't say it yet, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. I'm serious about this. I'm not joking. I'm about as serious about this as I am about that damn trust the process, which gets on my last damn nerves. No wonder you got the commissioner having to address tanking. I have no problem with a team that knows that it's lost for this season and it's got about 10 meaningless games left and everybody knows it, trying to position themselves to get the highest draft pick possible. I understand that. Trusting the process, they threw seasons. It's bad for sports. It's un-American. And don't get me started with the racial components of it all, because I don't know of a black man that would have the license to lose on purpose for 3 consecutive years and still be gainfully employed. I don't know it. I don't know that. So let me be very clear about it. I can't stand to trust the process. But just as much as I can't stand trust the process, I can't stand what I'm hearing with all of this debate, this chitter-chatter about Mark Jackson and the New York Knicks job. And let me say this. He's not the only qualified candidate. David Fizdale is a qualified candidate. Doc Rivers, if he ended up leaving the Clippers, would be a qualified candidate. Mike Woodson, assistant coach for the Los Angeles Clippers. As far as I'm concerned, he deserves to be a head coach in this league again. He got hosed here in New York. Last time New Yorkers enjoyed any kind of success with the New York Knicks, Mike Woodson was the coach. They went 54-28. They won their first Atlantic Division crown in 13 years. Mike Woodson was at the helm. In the following season, when they struggled, players were injured. Tyson Chandler's mother was battling cancer. He wasn't even practicing with the team. You had a situation where the one thing that James Dolan is really, really great about is taking care of players. So when Tyson Chandler had to go home to his mom in California, he didn't practice with the team, and after every single game he played, James Dolan had a jet pick him up before the game and take him back home after the game. All season long, that's what he did for Tyson Chandler, which was incredibly generous. But those are the conditions under which Mike Woodson was working with. So anybody that thinks that Mike Woodson can't coach or Mike Woodson doesn't deserve another head coaching job, pump your brakes. I'm not questioning what anybody's qualifications are. Jeff Van Gundy should be in the mix, even though he'd never be back in New York, not as long as James Dolan is there, because of how he walked out on James Dolan, even though he made the right decision in doing so. Which brings me back to Mark Jackson. I am sick and tired of folks not comprehending what the hell this is all about. The New York Knicks job is not just about basketball. The New York Knicks job is about something far greater. The New York Knicks job is about a culture. A culture that has been severely compromised, severely contaminated by the whole James Dolan regime. And I'm not trying to sit up here and pour salt on James Dolan. Because bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is that I firmly believe that owners, you cut the check. As long as they cut the check and they're not shy about doing so, I don't hold anything against them. The problem is that James Dolan isn't just a basketball owner. He's a hockey owner. He's owner of Cablevision, Madison Square Garden. I mean, look, this guy has a lot of tentacles. And I believe because of how he runs his ship, it gets in the way of basketball. You got players watching their back because, you got PR folks standing next to them every time they talking to the media. Scared to say anything, wondering whether their phones are tapped. And folks can see their text messages and all. I'm trying to tell you what I know. I've had this told to me over the years. Now, that doesn't make it true, but it's been told to me. And when you have that kind of environment that's so invasive and so paranoid, because no one would ever deny that the Knicks have both an invasive and a paranoid environment, that doesn't ingratiate you with the modern day player. Particularly in an age where you don't need to be in a large market in order to make your money. So because of that, the culture in New York City has eroded. Because of that, it has been nightmarish. Because of that, you have a difficult time getting people wanting to come here. Because of it, it's a miserable job for most people who are here. Because if you got options, why take this? It's cold as hell half the time. Taxes are through the roof. Only LA's worse. But unlike LA, it don't have the sunshine and the palm trees and Rodeo Drive. The bright lights of Broadway don't mean too much when it's blizzards outside or swirling winds and freezing temperatures. And when the team is devoid of any kind of tradition worth mattering, that really, really matters, because they haven't won a title since 1973, why did you think that Adam Silver, the commissioner in the NBA, depressed me yesterday with his departing comments? Because he was celebrating the NBA despite the fact that teams in New York, LA, and Chicago, top 3 markets, 5 separate teams, not a single playoff team. But the NBA is still thriving. He's absolutely right. That's something to celebrate. That's something to applaud. Unless you're a New Yorker. More specifically, a New York Knicks fan. Then it's enough to get you depressed. And that's what we're talking about here. The New York Knicks, as an organization, has been an abomination. There's no other way to slice this. They're awful. Have they moved in the right direction? I think so. With Steve Mills back at the helm, with Scott Perry as his GM, of course they have. But they are a basketball abomination. There's no way to slice this. Throughout the years, because of James Dolan's heavy-handedness about things primarily to do with business as opposed to basketball, but it gets in the way of basketball because it's something that preoccupies the basketball franchise from doing the things it needs to do. You have what you have. And oh, by the way, don't be fooled. They brought Isaiah Thomas in here. Isaiah Thomas's marching orders were to try to get LeBron. He never got an opportunity to finish the job. And at some point in time, it was time for a change. There's no denying that. I know Isaiah Thomas. I love him like a brother. It was time for him to go. And he knows that. I told him that. He was taking on too much. His mom was ill. Stephon Marbury had moved right around the corner from him. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. There was just too many things that had nothing to do with basketball that were nightmarish. The whole Nuka Brown Sanders scandal with Madison Square Garden, we all know about that. No need to belabor that. But then you bring in Donnie Walsh with Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni knows basketball, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Now that he's got Bizdelic as an associate head coach in Houston, they know defense too, but I digress. The point is, when he was here in New York with Donnie Walsh is an executive that knows what the hell he's doing. But he had aged. And when it's time to talk to LeBron James, and Dolan walks in talking about Wall Street, and D'Antoni, not that he was here at that particular moment in time, but you don't have but so much. Or Donnie Walsh, who at the time was in a wheelchair. The reality is that it didn't make for the most attractive situation. And then when you brought Phil Jackson in here, what happened? Phil Jackson never wanted the job. I've reported this on many occasions. He never wanted the job. But Dolan, being that little kid in the candy store, money being no object, decided to throw the house at him. 5, 6, 7, 8. The number kept going up and up and up to the point where I was told, Phil Jackson told confidants laughingly, the guy just keeps coming. At some point in time, how the hell could I say no to this money? And ultimately it was $12 million per for a position that wasn't paying anybody over $2 in the league. And what does Phil Jackson do? He takes the money. His definition of a road trip was to be in L.A., where his ex-fiancée, now ex-fiancée, Jeannie Buss was. Or Montana. Never went anywhere else. Talking to the media, he couldn't find her for months at a time. Carmelo Anthony became the team spokesperson. Derek Fisher, Kurt Rambis, Jeff Horner said, who gives a damn what any of them had to say? No disrespect. This is not what ingratiates you to New Yorkers. This is not something that assuages their concerns. This is not something that enables them to get over the misery they've been subjected to for more than a decade. You need more than this. Damn it. You need more. This is not just about basketball. Have you seen Spike Lee? When's the last time you seen him smile? Do you have no idea how depressed he is? How many shots of John McEnroe do you need to see at Madison Square Garden before you know it ain't enough? This is not a joke. The culture of New York basketball is at stake. This is not a joke. It is not a joke. You got to have somebody. It's not just about winning basketball games. We know you ain't going to win but so many games right now, damn it. Porzingis can only take you so far. We're celebrating the fact that he showed up for an exit interview. Because he did it last year. With Phil and Hornacek. Here's a 22-year-old wet behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac, who told y'all grown men to kick rocks. His second year in the league. This is not a joke. You've got to do better. I don't say Mark Jackson because, he's better than this coach or better than that coach. He's damn good. Did a damn good job in Golden State. Steve Kerr modified their offense, got more movement of the basketball, but it helped that his players were more seasoned and experienced. But he'd be the first to tell you that Mark Jackson established a defensive foundation for the Golden State Warriors. Could Mark Jackson have done things differently in Golden State? You're damn right. Whether you agree or disagree, if the owner that employs you says that a whole bunch of people didn't like you, that's something that Mark Jackson has to make sure to rectify. And if the owners might want you to get rid of an assistant coach here or there, sometimes you got to capitulate. But let's not act like Mark Jackson ain't qualified. Let's not act like he didn't do a good job. Let's not act like he didn't have something to do with establishing a foundation that ultimately led to 2 championships in 3 years by the Golden State Warriors. Let's not act like he doesn't know what he's doing. Let's not act like he hasn't earned the right to be a prime candidate for some of these jobs. This interview with the New York Knicks is his second interview, and he's been gone for over 3 years. That is a disgrace. That is a disgrace. But none of it matters. That's all water under the bridge. Because here is the reality. When it comes to the Knicks, we ain't just talking about basketball. We're talking about acquiring a human being, whoever it may be, that gives us the opportunity to focus on basketball rather than James Dolan. Fizdale doesn't do that. Doc Rivers wouldn't do that. Mike Woodson wouldn't do that now. Because he's already been here. I'm talking about fresh blood from Queens, New York, O'Connell Park, St. John's University, Rookie of the Year with the New York Knicks franchise, who cares enough that when he speaks on the Knicks, we will know to listen to him. We will know that he means what he says, and he's not being muzzled by James Dolan. Now, what I said may very well cost Mark Jackson the job, because we all know how control is so important to James Dolan in Madison Square Garden. But I am telling you that's what's needed. Because New York Knicks fans ain't coming here to support the Knicks. They come to the games because it's something to do. You ain't really heard this city rise up and support this team. You know why? Because this city can't rise and believe in this team. We're perpetually on our backsides, if not on our backs, depressed and mired in misery because of the moribund, inept franchise this franchise has been for more than a decade. It is time not just to hire a basketball coach, but a spokesperson for New York basketball to speak on behalf of this city, to let us know they are serious and focused and determined to change its ways. That is the reason I go off in support of Mark Jackson. Because it's not just about basketball. It's about so much more. Because James Dolan has given us so much less than we really deserve. That's the truth. And right here, right now, I'll even apologize to the billionaire who got into it with Charles Oakley for months ago and all of this other stuff. I will apologize right here on the national airwaves to James Dolan. I don't mean to cast any aspersions on you, sir. You're an owner who never hesitates to cut the check. I'll give you credit for that. And you may or may not have had exactly or directly stuff to do with bringing this franchise down. But guess what? It sank when you arrived. The correlation is undeniable. It's time for a change. Steve Mills and Scott Perry get to do their job to the best of their ability if they're not distracted by us. And there is no coach that can distract us from them and James Dolan but Mark Jackson. He should be the next head coach for the New York Knicks. If he's not, whoever gets hired, I wish them nothing but the best of luck. Because I'm going to love the Knicks for life. But my God, they're disgusting. It's just too much to take. I never took Prozac or any kind of drug like that in my life. They might make me. They really might. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. One other thing I forgot to add, and it simply comes with a question. When was the last time you checked your credit scores? Know what they are now, not from a year ago with Credit Karma. Learn what affects your scores and what you can do to improve them. Maybe you need to dispute an error or credit report, or maybe you're paying too much interest. Credit Karma can help with that. Is there unclaimed money in your name? Use Credit Karma to check. Once you know where you stand, Credit Karma helps you figure out your next move. They even offer free credit monitoring. So visit creditkarma.com or download the app right now, please. That's Credit Karma, KARMA.com.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people!
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A!
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
Next. You're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. You melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Stephen A. Smith Show is brought to you by Vivid Seats, the official ticket partner of ESPN. Download the free Vivid Seats app today to get your tickets, plus the NBA playoffs on ESPN Radio. Tune in tonight as LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers host the Indiana Pacers, presented by Barbasol Razors. Coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back to the phones we go. Let's go to LJ in Houston. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up?
Good afternoon, Stephen A.
Talk to me, bro.
I wanted to talk to you before the playoffs started to give you my thoughts on New Orleans and Portland series, because I felt that was a bad matchup for Portland, considering Rondo's championship experience and the fact that they traded to get Mirotic. They gave up 3 players and a first-round pick.
Let me say this to you. Let me say this to you. You don't even have to explain yourself, because you alluded to it weeks ago, and I remember you, and you were giving the Pelicans props then. So I'm not about to rob you of that right now. You deserve props for that, because you were telling me about the Pelicans weeks ago. You may not remember it, but you didn't just think it. You actually called up to this radio station and said it even before the playoffs began. So I remember you, LJ.
Appreciate that, Stephen A. And also, let's just hypothetically speak that New Orleans gets past them and gets to Golden State. Do you think the same problems would be for Steph Curry and Klay Thompson? Drew Holiday and Rondo playing off the ball?
Well, here's the problem. Here's the biggest problem. We just got news this morning that Steph Curry's going to be out another 3 weeks. So there's a huge chance that New Orleans, if they win this series, and I predict they will now, it's a huge chance they'll end up going against Golden State without Steph Curry, which means that if you're Golden State without Steph Curry, it's Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. But I still think that they don't have enough firepower to beat Golden State. But it'll be interesting, no question, because Drew Holiday is going to be all over. He's going to try to be all over Klay Thompson, and Rondo simply cannot be underestimated. Cannot be. So it'll be an interesting series. That series can end up going deep with the absence of Steph Curry. You're right about that.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I got some criticism about Steph Curry. I want to talk about it another day, but I can give you a little insight on it, because he's a two-time MVP with 2 championships, but he doesn't have an NBA Finals MVP. So do you think that it's a little bit of criticism or pressure this year?
I don't think
if he doesn't get that again?
I think it's something that's noticeable, but I don't think it's necessarily criticism. When you consider how prolific Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant have the capabilities of being, and then you take into account Andre Iguodala, let's understand why Andre Iguodala was the MVP for their first championship. What happens is you had Klay and Steph, who you knew were stars. And so what Cleveland did was key on it and essentially dared Andre Iguodala to shoot the ball. So Andre Iguodala was making shots that more than half the time were uncontested. He just made them to his credit. So when you look at it from that perspective, that had a lot to do with him being the MVP. See, even though he got the MVP award, it doesn't take away from what Steph did, because if Steph hadn't been as formidable as he was and Klay Thompson wasn't as formidable as he was, they would not have felt the need to focus on them so much that they were willing to leave Iguodala open. They would have been able to focus on Iguodala more. But because of Steph Curry's greatness, they couldn't afford to do that, and they had to leave somebody open and dare them to produce. And Andre Iguodala stepped up and produced. So Steph Curry deserves credit to some degree anyway for what happened with Andre Iguodala.
Okay. Well, we'll see this year. Like you said, the injury got him out another 3 weeks, so I think it's pressure on him to come back from this injury.
I don't think it's pressure.
He is a two-time MVP.
It's never any pressure to come back from an injury if you're truly injured. Once you come back, you have to perform, but there's never, if you're hurt, bro. If you heard, like for example, the reason why Kawhi Leonard is a story is because it appears as if you have folks within the Spurs organization that's questioning the legitimacy of his injury. I'm talking about, some of the statements from Popovich, not that he ever questioned Kawhi Leonard, but I'm talking about Tony Parker and others calling a players only meeting and confronting Kawhi Leonard, those kind of things. I'm talking about Greg Popovich's apparent exasperation over the whole ordeal. You've got people that are giving you the impression there are question marks as to how significant the injury to Kawhi Leonard is. That's entirely different than Steph Curry. Steph Curry, everybody knows he's injured. Nobody's questioning it. And everybody knows how badly and how desperately he would love to play. Similar in a roundabout way to Joel Embiid. Ain't nobody questioning his injury. He wants to play. He's being restrained from playing. He's being held back. But Joel Embiid wants to play. There's a difference between wanting to play and not being allowed to play because of your injuries, and you having people questioning the legitimacy of your injuries. Nobody's doing that with Steph Curry, LJ.
Okay, can I ask you one more question?
Real quick. Go ahead.
Do you think James Harden will be a unanimous MVP?
No. I think LeBron will get some votes. I think that Anthony Davis will get a couple. But I believe when all is said, and Russell Westbrook as well, but I believe when all is said and done, James Harden will capture his first league MVP honors. Houston has just been too great this year, and so has he. And he'll deserve it, by the way. He absolutely positively will. Appreciate the call, man. Let's go to Chris in L.A. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, Stephen A. Wow, LJ touched on a lot of questions I was going to ask you. But I'm not going to harp on what I told you regarding the New Orleans-Portland series.
You did.
Told you that was coming.
You're another one. You're another one. You and LJ are the two guys. You and LJ are the two guys that kept bringing up Rondo and Drew Holiday. I give y'all all the credit in the world. Absolutely true.
Great minds think alike, Stephen A. But I have a question for you regarding this Indiana-Cleveland game tonight. I think Cleveland get it done, but Stephen A., I won't be surprised if Indiana wins tonight. And I'll tell you why. Because the guys when you and I talked when this trade first happened, you thought that Cleveland was so much better and they got younger and they got quicker and all that good stuff. But what people fail to realize is playoff atmosphere is a lot different than regular season. So a lot of those shots that were falling and the plays that those guys are making in the regular season are a lot tougher this time of year, and there's more pressure playing alongside the best in the world. So
let's be clear. Let's be clear about my position. They got younger. and they had more fresh, able bodies to defend. I thought in that regard they got better. I also looked at the Eastern Conference and said, you got to show me that somebody can beat LeBron the best 4 out of 7 before I believe it in the East, because I just don't believe it and I just don't see it. That's what I said. That's how I feel. I still feel that way.
Oh, yeah, I got you, and I understand that. And one more thing, I have a question regarding the Wizards. Wizards has been one of your sleeper teams for I don't know how long, but I just you know what, Stephen A., but
I've given up on them. I've given up on them. I'm done with them, Chris. I think they might get swept, man.
Yeah. I don't know about swept. They'll get one. They'll get one at home. Toronto's just a better team. But I have a question for you regarding Bill and Wall playing together. Do you genuinely believe they enjoy playing well together? I think Bill was more happy when John Wall was out, but he will probably never admit that. But I feel like he had more control of the team when John was out. He may not be able to win without John, but he felt he had more control of his team, and they knew everything falls back on him.
I feel that way too. Listen. Here's the deal. John Wall's the star of the team. They don't look happy playing together, number one. Number two, there's no excuse for Bill for them to be a minus 34 with Beal on the floor. That is just a disgrace. That is just embarrassing. He is too good. He is too gifted to find himself in that kind of situation. That is an atrocious situation to find himself in. He should be ashamed of himself. And I love Bradley Beal. I really do. As a player and as a person. He's got a smooth stroke and what have you. But he's been a model of inconsistency. He doesn't show up in the fourth quarter half the time. And on top of it all, you are minus 34 on the floor. There's no excuse for it, Chris. I'm not letting him off the hook. It's just that simple to me. I am sorry. I got to bounce, though. I appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. And I'm not saying that Washington's going to get swept. I think they can win a game, but I think they have to win game 3 Friday night. Otherwise, this series is over Sunday. I think this season is pretty much done. And if that happens, you're going to have to move one of them. Now, Beal should be the one that's moved if you have to move the two, because Wall is better. The problem is you can get more for Wall than you can for Beal. And that's where it really becomes problematic for you. But that's just my thought process. By the way, introducing the all-new ESPN app now with ESPN Plus. What's ESPN Plus? It's ESPN's new streaming service available right in the ESPN app. With ESPN Plus for just $4.99 per month, you get thousands of live sporting events, including MLB, NHL, MLS, and top-ranked boxing, and a full library of movies and documentaries, including the 30 for 30 collection. And our listeners can take advantage of a 30-day free trial on ESPN Plus presented by Amex by signing up with the ESPN app today. The all-new ESPN app featuring ESPN Plus. Check it out today.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.